Well, it depends where you put your money and your faith, John. I think COP, the COP, stands for the Conference of Parties. Do you believe the 25 years of failure and make your judgment, or the 2 weeks to get it right, as the UN Secretary-General said today? There are some hopeful signs, important to note them. Recently, the EIB, the European Investment Bank, said no more investment in fossil fuels. It's one of the biggest banks in the world. After 1 year, frees up $1 trillion for reinvestment in renewable energies across Europe. And today, a remarkable letter signed by CEOs and labour unions in the United States. Google, Apple, Total, Shell, PepsiCo, the Coca-Cola Company, you name it, all saying America has to stay in the Paris Agreement, even though Donald Trump, of course, wants out, and of course, he's not here. COP25, meaning 25 years of moving global warming from a distant notion to an impending catastrophe. Thus, a monumental failure by every country on earth, ununited nations under the umbrella of the United Nations.
We are confronted now with a global climate crisis. And the point of no return is no longer over the horizon. It is in sight and hurtling towards us.
In the Netherlands, we invest billions of euros in adapting our country to the changing climate.
The state we're in means heads of state pondering losing the states they head. So the writing is on the wall. There are slogans here, hot air, rhetoric. Oh yes, world leaders are strong on that.
I mean, for Netherlands, this is an existential question.
Absolutely.
Your country might not exist.
6 or 7 million people living below sea level. So for us, building dikes, fighting climate change, but also to adapt to it is crucial.
President Trump not coming, talking of pulling out of the Paris Accord altogether. That's one hell of a signal to the humanity, isn't it?
Well, we have our own signal in a positive way to have 15 members here from the Congress, the House, and the Senate to make a commitment, as well as to listen to how we all can do better working together.
Are you saying, in effect, don't worry about the White House, America is listening?
We're in it. We're still in it. America is still in it, yes.
But ask them about real action, and they run for the hills. Stopping subsidies for fossil fuels?
Step by step.
Okay.
People talk about ending subsidies to the fossil fuel business, full stop, globally. Don't we need some action like that?
Well, we have to be on the positive side of things. The reality is, in our country, that would be hard to do now, although we've been trying to do it for a while.
Almost 30,000 delegates and visitors, 50 heads of state over 2 weeks to act towards keeping global warming this side of a point of no return, desperately trying to salvage the broken global promises that came out of the Paris Agreement 4 years ago. With zero irony, delegates here can eat at Burger King, meat production being, of course, a leading greenhouse gas producer. Endesa, the power giant and Spain's largest CO2 emitter, is sponsoring this conference. Yet, without COP, the Paris Agreement on climate change would never have happened. And now, some demand that we move much further, much faster.
I want Europe to become the first climate-neutral continent in the world by 2050.
The EU Commission President promising a new Green Deal in her first 100 days in office. But elsewhere, contrasting moves today. Wrong side of history or not, Chinese and Russian leaders signing a major new gas pipeline deal. The UK mission stand here in Madrid trumpets a green revolution, but our government back home still hides key information about fracking for shale gas from the public. The report is headed confidential and commercially sensitive. None of it to be released under the Freedom of Information Act. None of it may be shared within government or beyond. What is released was described by Greenpeace today as a wall of ink, almost all the report entirely censored. But why? What mustn't the public know from a report 3 years old into a business now opposed by all main parties except the Tories, and they've suspended it?
Extinction Rebellion!
Late this afternoon, Extinction Rebellion briefly blocked the road outside the conference centre. Likely to be a probing manoeuvre testing the police response ahead of more concerted action. These protesters, like the UN Secretary General inside, frustrated, now frightened at the lack of action. Alex Thompson, Channel 4 News, Madrid.